We'll get us started. My name is Madison Zulowitz. I am the event coordinator here at DUG, or Dynamics User Group. So I help run our local and regional meetup program. I'm just going to go through quick slides about who DUG is and kind of what all we offer, and I can help answer any questions at the end or in the chat. So DUG is a free community for users, implementers, and resellers of Microsoft business applications. It's our main mission to support the Microsoft Dynamics 365 GP and Power Platform community, and we want to be able to help you excel and grow in your personal and professional career. Well, I don't know where my presentation just went. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Our rules of engagement is we essentially ask that these meetups are held to be solely educational. So please no sales pitches. We want everybody to be able to come and join these meetups and learn some educational content, network with each other. We also ask that if you are attending this, to engage with your speaker, ask questions. That's how you get the most out of these meetups, is by staying engaged. And I'm sure our speakers always love it. I'm sure they will tell you how they would prefer, whether they want you to raise your hand or send your question in the chat or save all questions for the end. But please, please, please ask questions and stay engaged. Dynamics User Group has multiple different platforms and forums. So we have online discussion forums where you can go and ask the community a question and they can help answer it. We have free webinars, conferences, local meetups like this one. We also have a YouTube channel where all of our local virtual meetups get posted on YouTube, and you can have access to view all of that for free, as well as this one if you are watching it virtually. Welcome. We also have a Skill Up and a Team Up program, and we have lots of conferences throughout the year that I'll get into. We have DynamicsCon regionals. So these are a little bit larger in scope than our local meetups like this one. They are usually full day to 2-day events. They always include breakfast, lunch, typically a social hour. And they're really just a full day of content in person where you can socialize, network. You also have the opportunity to go into typically about 3 session rooms that are all talking about different Microsoft products. So lots and lots of great education. They're run by our community members. So really listening to what you all want to hear. And these are our North America regionals coming up. So we're going to Canada. We are going to Denver, Colorado, Ohio, Texas, and Florida. And we're also going international. We're super excited that we will be going to Ghana and Kenya in July. I know we have a few folks on here that have helped out with those regionals, and we're going to Europe in September. So very excited to be going international for the first time this year. We also have our largest conference of the year, our 2025 DynamicsCon. This is the biggest conference that we have. It is a multi-day event, and we will have multiple days of education, networking, a really great way to get involved in the community if you haven't been already. And for all of our meetup members, we have a 15% off code right now. You can use that meetup 15 code to get 15% off at checkout. And that is all for me. So if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out, please feel free to just send a message in the chat, and I'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Madison. Thank you, Madison, for that introduction. That was brilliant. And on top of that, please remember the East Africa Regional Meetup is on July 24th. So if you could, please, Madison, share the event registration link so that they can register, the attendees can register, and also the call for speakers, because we are calling for speakers for that physical event in Nairobi, Kenya, on July 24th and 25th, so that you can get speakers. You can share with someone who would want to be a speaker on that physical event in Nairobi, and it's a good platform for all of us. All right, so straight to today's meetup, we have AJ, Andre Jan Kauffmann, the CTO of Lumos 365 Limited. And so it's a UK-based partner with Business Central Solutions, specifically for the energy sector. And as he mentioned earlier, he's in the Netherlands. So he has over 20 years of experience with Microsoft Dynamics now for Business Central. So when he was starting, some of us were almost getting born or after born, maybe on after getting born, with 30 years of experience in the IT industry. So some of us weren't born when he started the IT industry. So please just be sure that this is someone who is really experienced and he has a solid track record in this business. So with a strong focus on architecture, design, and integration, and he has worked on in different roles with a broad range of technologies and platform from Seaside, VS Code development, the old CAL, L development, .NET framework, Microsoft Azure, and Office 365. And he strongly believes that knowledge increases by sharing it, not by saving it. So by delivering workshops and being a frequent speaker at conferences like this one, he can put this into practice. And since 2013, AJ is awarded the Microsoft MVP Business Solutions. So thank you very much, AJ, for that belief that by sharing knowledge, that's when you grow. And thank you for the accepting an invite to be able to share knowledge with us, and we can't wait to download a few years of experience from you in this meetup. So you're welcome.
Well, thank you for the introduction. That's nice. So I can skip introducing myself. That's great.
Good.
So I guess we can start with the topic, right?
Yeah, you can.
All right. Let me then start sharing my screen. Let me find the button where I do all of that. And you should now be able to see my screen. Can you confirm?
Yes, well visible. Thank you.
Super. All right. So today's topic is about Business Central Webhooks. And that is a term that, as I will show you, of course, in this session, that is not only about API webhooks, but we will focus also on what is called external business events in Business Central, something that I would like to describe as API webhooks on steroids. So what I want to do is show you what API webhooks are, how they work, and then show external business events and explain how they are different from API webhooks and why you might be more interested in using external events instead of API webhooks. So usually my first slide is about introduction, but thank you, that has already been done, so we can skip that part. Let's dive into API webhooks then. So API webhooks, that is something that is featured automatically by the API layer in Business Central. So the APIs that are exposed or published by Business Central, they do not just expose the data, they also expose API webhooks. Now, what is a webhook? A webhook is basically a notification that something has changed in the data set that the API represents. A dataset that an API represents is also referred to as a resource or a list of resources. Every single item that an API is exposing is called a resource. So an item record is a resource, a customer record, a sales order, etc. They're all resources. Now, if there is any change in those resources, you would not know until you call that API and compare the response with the data you already have in an external system. But Webhooks is actually the mechanism that you could describe as do not call us, we will call you. So you do not have to frequently check on let's say a daily basis or an hourly basis. If there has been anything changed on in records, you will be notified. So you don't need a recurring job to check if anything has changed. Now, that webhook is something that's built in the API layer, but it is, of course, starting from AL code. If an API represents a table in Business Central, so if something changes in the table, then from code it will in AL code, it will find out that there is actually an API webhook listening to that change, and then it will send out a notification to that listening endpoint. You could think of that as the change log functionality in Business Central is actually in the same area. The moment that you enable change log in Business Central, so you log any change of any table that you are interested in, then it's kind of the same thing, but now going to an external listener, something outside of Business Central. Well, the external listener is notified about a change in the resource, and a change could be a new resource has been created, an existing resource has been modified or deleted. Now, the notification that is sent out to the external system, as you will see in the demo in a minute, is contains limited information. What I mean with that is that the notification that you receive contains information about which resource has been changed with a URL to the resource, to the API of the resource, the API endpoint, but that's it. You do not get information what has been changed. You will know that it was an insert or modify or delete. So that's the only thing you receive. What is the type of the change, and what is the URL to that resource? And that's it. Now, when you want to subscribe to such changes, then you need to call a specific subscriptions endpoint that is on every set of APIs automatically available. And what happens then is that Business Central checks if the external system that should receive the notification really exists. It does that by performing a so-called handshake mechanism. This basically means that it sends out a verification call to the external system. It expects the external system to respond in a specific way. And if that works, then it says, okay, I accept your external system as a listening system, and it will from now on receive notifications. When you create that subscription, you need, of course, specify which resource you are interested in. And no, from that point on, you will get the notifications. Well, for 3 days. After 3 days, the subscription that you have created expires, and you need to refresh that subscription. Every 3 days, you need to recreate or refresh the subscription that you have created. Something to keep in mind if you want to subscribe from a custom application. If you subscribe from Power Automate, that is then automatically handled in the background. But if it is not Power Automate, then you need to handle it yourself. Well, this is the basics of API webhooks. So, of course, a picture is better than 1,000 words. So I would like to demonstrate how all of that works. But let me start with telling you that you can actually retrieve a list of supported webhook resources. That is an URL, an API /Microsoft/runtime. I'm still using beta, but probably there's a newer version for that. I'm not sure about it. And there is a webhook supported resources list. And when we call that, I'm filtering it on all resources that come with the V2 API from Microsoft. Then if I call this one, I get a complete list and I see all the resources that are supporting webhooks. Let's take a simple one. Let's, for example, look at customers like this one here. And I'm going to create a subscription for the customer endpoint. If we do that, we need to call API v2.0/subscriptions. So this is the way, the point where we create a subscription. If we call API/v2.0 on its own, let me quickly do that. So this API/v2, we will get a list of all endpoints on the standard API, the V2 API from Microsoft. And one of the endpoints is, of course, companies. We know that. But one of the endpoints is also subscriptions. That is not an API that they have created, that is built in, baked in the platform. And then you get all these standard APIs that we probably, I hope, are familiar with. Now, I want to create a subscription, and the first thing I need to do is to tell him where is the URL that is listening. And I need to find out the URL. Hold on a sec. Oh, that's funny. My URL is already gone here. I have created an Azure function that is listening to this. So let me find quickly that URL because somehow it didn't save it. Where are my functions? Come on. I should be able to get that from here. Of course, it's not going to work. So I'm going to have this 1 second. Sorry for this. But I got it over here on this one. There we are. Okay, back to this. This is my URL and it is called /API webhook. It's just an Azure function, and let me connect to that Azure function to see that it really is working. So we see an empty log here. And when I start doing something, it should be able to or should give me some logging. So that's, and then you can actually see what is the JSON that comes in. Now, the moment that I do this, I also do not only need to specify the notification URL, where should the notification go to, but I also need to specify the resource. Where am I interested in? I do not have to specify the full URL to the environment that is already, well, in fact, we call an API with an environment, etc. Environment here is called v26 US. You don't need to specify that because you're calling an environment, so the subscription will be in that environment. Well, you need to tell the resource, and it starts with API, in this case v2.0. I will come back to custom APIs shortly. Tell him for which company you want to be notified. My company is ID is stored in a variable here. And this example is using items, not customers. And I have a client state, and a client state acts as a secret. Now, if the client state is not the same as the client state you expect, then you can just reject the message. Why is that? Because the notification URL that you see here is a anonymous URL. There's no authentication that Business Central is going to do against this URL. You cannot give him a username and a password. It's not using tokens or whatsoever. It is an anonymous URL. Now imagine that another party, I don't know who, but maybe a hacker, wants to flood your system with fake messages, and you are accepting any messages that comes in. That will not work. Then your system will be compromised, of course. So for that, what you need to do is share a secret. They call it client state, but you need to share a secret that only you and Business Central know. Now, if a notification comes in and that notification does not contain a correct client state, then you know that it is not coming from Business Central. And in that case, you need to reject the message, the notification. And what you actually should do is not return an error code like client state incorrect or not accepting the message or whatsoever. What you actually should do is just accept the message, but do not process it. The idea behind that would be that an external system would not know that the client state is incorrect. If you tell them, hey, that's incorrect, they could keep trying until they find the correct client state. And they know that something is listening. Now, if you do not tell him that information, but you just say, hey, I accept the message, but you just dismiss everything behind the scenes, then they don't know. And that is the most safe way of doing this. Well, let's create this subscription, and let's see what happens. I get back a notification here from response from Business Central that tells me that a subscription has been created. Now let me see here. What it tells me here is that it processed a validation token. Let me zoom in. So in the logging, we can see that the API webhook received a request and that it processed a validation token. That validation token is a random value that is generated by Business Central, and your web service that is listening is supposed to send back exactly this token, and that's it. That's the only thing that needs to be done. All right, so now we have created a subscription to, where's my Business Central? Come on, where are you? Oh, my Postman, I should say. So we have, here's Postman. We have created a subscription to the items endpoint. So why not go into Business Central and do something with items? And let's go into this empty item here and let's give that item a description. So this is a demo item. And I'm going to close the screen so we know this has now been saved to the database. Now, what we expect, since you go to this one here, is a new notification that comes in here in the log. Now, what you will see is that this takes a while. The Business Central platform collects the outgoing notifications for about 30 seconds and then send out to the listening endpoints all notifications that have been collected at once. So you may receive one notification, is what I expect here to come in just a few seconds, or you may receive multiple notifications. And of course, I'm going to demonstrate that as well as we are waiting for a notification to come in. This is always the awkward part of this demo, where you have to wait for Business Central to actually do something. That is, yeah, a little bit awkward. Now, let's not wait too long. Let's talk about for a minute about renewing the subscription. See here in the response that we got back from Business Central is that the expiration of this subscription is on the 26th of April. So that means that in 3 days from now, this subscription will expire. Now, in case you want to renew this, what you then need to do is take the subscription ID, go to the URL subscriptions with that ID in the URL, and we make a patch request to that one. The body can be an empty JSON, that's fine. Now, when you look here, we have an expiration date and time of 26th of April, 1522. When I renew this one, it will still be valid until the 26th, of course, but the time will at least be updated, because now it's until 1527, so 5 minutes later. So that is how a subscription needs to be renewed, well, every 3 days. Let's see if we got something here. The funny thing is that it processed the validation token again. Well, that happens on the patch, but apparently the notification of the webhook is not coming in at the moment. Let me stop and start it for one more time. Connected. Let me clear everything. I'm gonna do the demo one more time, because sometimes this stops for whatever reason. And let me change this demo item to another demo and give him 1 more minute to come up with that notification. Now, while we are waiting for the Azure function to come in with what he receives here, I want to also demonstrate that you can do the same in Power Automate. So let me skip all of this and go straight into Power Automate. And we're going to add a trigger. We search for Business Central. A small tip: if you're working with Power Automate and you want to find the Business Central triggers and actions, do not type in Business Central, but only Central. Because on Business Central, on the word business, it finds a lot of other connectors, but only Central, that works. The trigger that we need to look at is when a record is changed. That is actually the one that is the API webhook. Well, we have created, modified, deleted as well, but I go with changed. Specify the environment, the company that I'm interested in. Come on, here we go. And then tell him that I'm also interested in items. Where is my list of items? Here it goes. And just add another small step: init variable. I'm not really interested in the variable itself, but I call it just the demo as a string, and that's it. Let's save it. Let's go back. It's already enabled. Now let's go back into Postman and now see if there are any new subscriptions. gonna call the subscriptions endpoint with a get, not a post in this case. And we see that now we have a notification URL, flow API, Europe, whatnot. This is our the URL of the Power Automate flow that we just created. It has a big client state. So it doesn't have to be a short value. It can be a long value actually. And this is the other one, the demo BC, whatever, the Azure function that I created earlier. So now we have two listeners, two external systems listening to actually the same resource. Let me see if Azure, there we are. So the Azure function now received a notification from the item update that we did. This is the JSON that comes in. It tells us the subscription ID. That's the same value as in that we already saw in Postman. The client state that we can check and verify. When this notification will expire. This is after our update, after our renew. Then it gives us a URL to the item record on the API, items API that was changed, and the change type is updated. Well, I'm not going to do exactly the same demo because I want to move on to external events. But as you can imagine, the same JSON would be received by Power Automate. And there you can then read, what can you read? You can actually read that an item has been updated. That's all. And that is exactly my point, my problem with API webhooks. It gives you a URL to the updated item. It gives you the change type updated. I can tell you if I would have created an item and then updated a few fields on the item, I would receive multiple notifications, one for the insert, one for the for each update that I did, and they will all be pointing to the same URL. My problem here is that it is just pointing to a resource URL. If I now want to know which field has been changed, then I don't know. I cannot tell based on this notification. Imagine you want to know when a sales order has been released, and you subscribe to the sales order API, and you want to receive sales order changes on sales orders. Then any change that is done on the sales order header or the sales order lines will be received as an update. But you don't know if it was the status field. If the status field has been changed from open to released, you don't know. So every time that you receive this notification, you need to read the resource, and you need to check if the status field has been changed to released. And you still need to know what the old value was. Was it already released or not? Because even changes to the could happen to a sales order after release. So there's something to you need to do some extra steps, to take extra steps to check if this notification is really the one that you were looking for. And the same goes for when a sales order is posted, or when an item is blocked, or a customer is blocked, or when, for example, an item goes, the inventory of an item goes below a certain level. Or, I mean, I can think of so many scenarios where you're not really interested in every field change, but in a particular change or a particular process that occurs in Business Central, and you want to be notified about that, not about a particular field change that is the result of that process. You want to know about the process itself. And that is where external business events come in. Before I forget, one small change, I promised you to talk about that, about webhooks. I create a webhook here for the standard APIs for Microsoft. And we know the standard APIs for Microsoft, they they start with v2.0. There is no publisher, no API publisher, no API group specified in Microsoft's APIs. Now, if you have a custom API and you want to subscribe to the custom API with webhooks, then what you need to do is write the full URL to your API publisher, API group, and version, whatever that version is. It might be v1 or v2 or v3.6 or whatever your version on that API is. And you need to change that here as well, because you're interested in API publisher / API group / v3.6 in this case. I see this goes wrong many times. People think that they should use v2.0 because that is what is documented and you see it in demos, etc. But when it goes for a custom API, then do not forget to use your full custom API endpoint together with subscriptions that will be there automatically, and do the same in your resource part. Then this will also work for custom APIs. All right, having said that, let's go back to external business events. Okay, external business events. The official name of external business events is business events. That is how it is documented. In AL code, however, it is called an external business event. And in the APIs that we're using, it is called external event. So 3 different names for the same thing. The story behind it is that in the first iteration, when this was created, it was called an external business event. And then it was added to Power Automate. And then you had this trigger on Power Automate called when an external business event happens. And it was kind of confusing, because if you say from Power Automate, where you are already external, and then you say when an external business event occurs, people might wonder if that is something that happens outside Business Central and you want to notify Business Central about it, or is it something that happens inside Business Central and Business Central wants to notify the outside world. So Microsoft decided to rename it to business events, to remove the word external. However, there is already something in Business Central called business event. It's actually the same kind of thing as an integration event. And the integration event in AL, we are all used to. You subscribe to integration events from AL code, from your extension. But there's also something that's called business event, which they work the same as integration events, but with the difference that a business event should never change. That was the idea originally. Well, as far as I know, Business Central base code does not have any event marked as a business event. They only have events marked as integration events or even internal events, but no business events. But anyway, so that word is now used for both the mechanism in Business Central called business events and for external business events. And in the APIs, you will see we have something called external events. Now, what is it? It is something that is completely featured by the AL language. It is triggered from code just like any other AL event. What I mean with that is when you have an integration event in Business Central, then you raise that event from code. We know an integration event in Business Central is actually a procedure, a function that does not have any code in it, but it is marked as an integration event between the square brackets just on the line above the function. And when you call it, nothing happens in your code, but a subscriber, an event subscriber, can pick it up if the event subscriber exists. If there is no event subscriber, then everything continues as normal. But if there is a subscriber, it will first run the code of that subscriber, the AL code of the subscriber, and then return to your code at the place where you called or raised that event. Now, an external business event kind of works in the same way. From AL code, you call that event function. It is now not marked as an integration event, but marked as a external business event, as you will see in a minute. But now there will not be some AL code that is listening to that event in event subscription in AL. That is not the case, but there is an external application that is listening to that event, or none, and then it just continues. But if there is an external system listening to that event, it will receive the notification that that event in Business Central happened. So the same way as you raise normal events, the same way you raise an external event, and the same way as an internal event an internal subscriber subscribes to an internal event, the same way you can have conceptually, the same way you have an external listener subscribing to that external business event. Is then everything exactly the same? No, that is not the case. First of all, what is the same is that when you call the external business events, you can call it with parameters. And those parameters are passed to the external listener. In that way, you can just notify the external listener about something that happened in the code during a process. You can get an after release or on release sales order or on customer blocked, etc. Now to be received by an external system. So it contains all the parameters of the AL event. When you subscribe from an external system, it is much easier as webhooks, as API webhooks, because there is no handshake required and there is no expiration. So you do not have to renew it. Business Central will know if that external system is not listening anymore, because when it sends a notification and the external system is not responding, it will just mark that outgoing notification as retry, and it will retry that a couple of times with increasing intervals. And then after, I don't know exactly, I think 10 retries, it will say, okay, this external system is not listening anymore. I'll stop and cancel that subscription. Now, what is different from webhooks and also different from internal events is that a subscribing system, the external system, can subscribe to a single company or all companies in an environment. So one single subscription can be environment-wide and does not have to be for a particular company. There are business events available out of the box in Business Central. They are delivered as an app. The app is called _exclude_business events. With a specific ID, you need that ID. I will show you that with Postman to subscribe to the event. So you don't see this app as being installed in the extension management list because it's called _exclude, meaning hide from the installed extension list, but they are there. Now, what are the business events you get out of the box? You have a number of events in accounts receivable, accounts payable, and opportunities, in sales, purchasing, job queue, and finance. I see that under opportunities we have credit memo and purchase payment posted. They should, of course, be under accounts payable. Sorry for that. So these are the business events that come out of the box, and we can add our own business events to this list. Well, when you want to subscribe to a business event, we have Power Automate that we can use, and we can use an external system like an Azure function. And I'm going to demonstrate both to you. So let's first go with Power Automate. I go to my flows. I say I want to have a new flow and skip everything here because I want to create a trigger manually. I'm going to add a trigger from Business Central, and that one is called, let me open the complete list, when a business event occurs. When a business event occurs, I need to tell him the environment that I'm listening to and then the event that I'm interested in. And here we see the complete list of events that Microsoft delivers out of the box. And only this one here, customer level changed, which is a custom event. And I will show you that in the final demo, how I get it in this list. So let's take customer blocked. That is the one that I'm interested in, and optionally I can tell him for which company I'm interested in. But if I want to receive this for any company in the environment, then I'll keep the company name parameter empty. In this case, I will just specify it, but it doesn't really make a difference. In it variable, going to create just one step here, one step, but as you can imagine, you can do a lot with this, like creating emails, posting. Oh, this is set variable. That should not, is not what I wanted. Come on, delete. I have no variables. I want to do init variable. But you can do steps like post a message in a Teams channel, send an email, whatnot. I'm just going to say this is a demo var of type string, and that's it. I'm going to save it. And this one has been enabled automatically. Well, let's see what happens when I go into Business Central and go to a customer and whatever. I say blocked is all. Okay. Oh, that's funny. Let me go to my extension management list and uninstall my customization, because apparently a customization is now doing its job. Yes. I think I had two conflicting apps installed. And that is something we should not do. So let's just clean up here. And I publish this one later. There we go. Yep. And unpublish. Let's see if something happened with the flow. Nothing. That's what I was expecting because there was an error message. Let's change blocked to all. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I need to refresh, but I do not really care about that. And what you see here is that 14 seconds ago, we got already a notification. Now, this is different from the webhooks where we had to wait for more than a minute because in the background, Business Central was collecting multiple notifications. That is not the case with external business events. They are sent out immediately. There's no waiting time. But it only sent out if the transaction completes. So if there is an error in the code, then the notification will not be sent out. So they are queued until the end of the transaction, and then immediately after the commit, the notification goes out, which means that your code continues to run when the external business event is executed. It just keeps it in a queue until the commit. That also means that this is not a synchronous operation. The external listener cannot respond to it. It just receives the notification and knows, okay, this really happened in Business Central. Let's go into the details, what came in. And that we can see on the trigger in Power Automate. This is the input that came in. We have a business event. Come on, I should actually go with the other one, I guess. Like here. All outputs. So here we see the notification that came in from Business Central. There is the environment name, the company ID, etc., the customer ID, and blocked. So this is the value that came in. And a URL and a web client URL to this particular client record. This is all defined in code. Well, the best way to show you how that works from code is by showing you how a custom business event works, because then you get the ID and it shows all the time is flying. What you need to do to create your own business events, you need to extend an enum called event category. It's not called business event category, but event category. You need to write that function, mark it as an external business event, and give that a name, a display name, a description, category, and a version, and then call the procedure. Let me show you the code of this. I'm here in my app. I have a enum, customer level, basic, bronze, silver, etc. I have added this as a field to the customer table. And what I want to do is notify an external system when the level has been changed. Now, in order to do this, the first thing I need to do is create an enum extension that extends event category. There I add a value. that must have a suffix because this is an extension. So suffix or prefix is required. And then I go to my code unit where I have a function. And this function is, let me close this list here. This is the same type of function that you define for a normal event. I pass in my customer number, the old customer level, and the new customer level, and I mark this function as an external business event. The name of the external business event is called customer level changed. Short description is customer level change. The longer description is this, and an event category, which is my added category to that enum. The idea is that an external system then can categorize the external business events. I mean, there's no other reason for having that category anyway. And a version, which means that you can create multiple versions of one event in case you want to add another parameter. Make sure to copy everything, call it V2. Here I have a V1 added to it. You just copy it and change the version number to whatever you want, and there will be another event. So an external system can then gracefully change to the next one. Now, how do we subscribe to this when this one has been published? And we quickly publish this one to the environment. Here we go. And open Postman. Here we have an API that is called External Business Event Definitions. It is sitting in Microsoft Standard V2 API. And here we get a list of APIs that are out of the box available. Here you see customer blocked that we demonstrated with Power Automate. And let me now find the one that I was creating, customer level changed. We see that this one has been published by this app ID. That's my app in VS Code. The event version, the payload. This looks a little bit awkward, but as you will see in a demo, C# has no problem with this. But this is a serialized JSON in JSON. But we see that it has a customer number, which is code 20, an old customer level, and a new customer level. Well, some descriptions, what the category is, and the app name that publishes this event. When I want to subscribe to this customer level changed, I need to call the endpoint external event subscriptions. So this one was called external business event definitions. But now I want to create a subscription that is not just called subscriptions as we had with webhooks, but external event subscriptions. I create the app ID, or specify the app ID. I need to specify customer blocked and event version. So I need to copy it over from here. The funny thing is that this is not 100% the same as I want to have here, as I will show you, because this field name is actually called event name. So that is not the same thing, but here it should work. My URL, let me get my URL, API slash, come on, what was it called? That was called external business event, yeah. External business event, come on, there we are. And my client state again included, and a company ID. But if I do not want a company, but all companies, then I just leave it out. It is an optional parameter. I send it. I get back the confirmation created. So my customer level changed subscription is now created. Let me go to my Business Central and Azure. and I need to stop and start my monitoring because that stops at some point. Connected, clear, okay. Now I go to customers. Yeah, I installed a new app, I know. Let's go to customers and then say my basic level is going to gold level. And let's see what happens here. We should get this in just a few seconds, hopefully. Of course, it's not working immediately. Why would it? That's funny. Basic to bronze. Come on, you can do this. Okay, sometimes that monitoring thing here is not working as I would expect. Try it one more time. Basic level to gold level. Ah, there we go. So that was not my Azure function, but it was the monitoring part. So what I see now here, this is the JSON that comes in, and I can see that I had a payload. That is my important part. This is my customer number, which changed from basic level to gold level. Now, as you can imagine, you can do this for any thing in Business Central. You can do this for orders released or well, it's already there out of the box, but any change in the data that you want to notify an external system about. Really powerful, much more useful than API webhooks. All right. The external business events also emit some telemetry, a little bit basic telemetry actually. They tell telemetry if a subscription has been created or deleted or triggered successfully. That is the RT0045, which is a little bit useless because that is telemetry is logged immediately when the procedure is called. But if there is an error in your code, then yeah, it will still have that event in the telemetry, but it was never called. But so that yeah, RT0045 is a little bit useless. It does not tell you when it was actually sent to the subscriber. And there is one that tells you when a notification failed after multiple retries. Further no details, it's just basic information you get there. Some tips. That is my last slide actually. Multiple notifications for one subscriber may be combined after the transaction is successfully completed. So for example, if you have a loop and you change multiple, and in our example, change multiple customers, the customer level of it for multiple customers, then and you have a commit at the end, the subscriber will receive multiple notifications. They will be collected in that case. When there is an error, the notification will not be sent out. Standard business events, they will not be sent for preview scenarios. So if you do a preview posting and there was an event, for example, this is an event for on post invoice, they will not be sent out when you do preview post. Told you about the empty company and versions. What you should do is obsolete events, business events, and not just change the version property. So use versions and obsolete the older ones. When you change the version, it's not a breaking change for Business Central, but of course the external system will break. So just don't do that. Use versioning and create multiple versions and obsolete the old ones. That's it. Thank you for hearing me out. I don't know if there's any questions that I need to answer.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Ajay. That was really extensive, and I'm actually, for the first time, I'm understanding external events for some reason because I have seen them, but I didn't know that they're this powerful. One question before we can pick another one, since we are really out of time, but the content is really good, so bear with us for a few minutes. So Fred Mbai is saying, I'm reading big data from an API endpoint and inserting into Business Central. How can I be sure that the data is captured efficiently and does not take all the time to get into Business Central?
Yeah, that's not really about webhooks, I think, but just how do you make sure that data you send to Business Central is handled? Well, Business Central will return will return a response telling you that the data has actually been received and processed. You will receive a 200, 202, or 201 for created. Now, the point here is if you have many requests, then at some point you may reach the end of the queue. If you send requests faster than Business Central can handle. That maximum number of requests has been increased in the latest version, but still, if you run in at the end of the queue, you will receive a 429 status code from Business Central, which basically tells you, hey, slow down, please. In that case, you need to build in a 10 or 30 seconds delay. You can also look into something called batch requests, which will allow you to send in multiple requests in one call. I have an extensive blog about that on my blog site about using batch requests. So that might be another option to go with.
Okay. If able to, you can share the link. You can share the link to that.
Yeah, my
or
my
else you
website.
can send it later, and then I'll share with the group. So that's also
Yeah,
an
the
option.
link to my blog is here in the chat now.
Good.
And there is a research for batch request. You will find a couple of posts there. I
Yeah, you can.
see another question,
Yeah.
I think.
Yes, you can handle it. Yeah. Right.
Can we subscribe to an external webhook like payment gateway platform from Business Central? Technically, yes, but there's a very big but. And the problem is that external sites who want to call a webhook behave the same way as Business Central. They want to call a anonymous endpoint. In most cases, you cannot provide authentication. Or if you can provide authentication, in most cases, is it just basic authentication? And Business Central does not support basic authentication anymore. So the only option for you would be to have a service in the middle that receives the payment webhook. That's you subscribe to that for example, an Azure function, which then will forward the notification to Business Central and authenticate properly. That is how I usually have implemented these kind of integrations. So an Azure function in between receives the notification from the payment gateway and forwards it to Business Central.
Yeah, that sounds good. Any other person with a question, you can unmute and ask as we wind up.
No.
Okay, anyone with an
nobody?
addition? If there is no question, maybe someone wants to add. Sam has a follow-up. Sam, you can't unmute.
Yeah. So to answer the same on this one, get a notification when the customer is blocked. You want also when it is unblocked. Yes, there is a customer unblocked event as well. So that's the funny thing. What I did, and as a first demo, when I learned about this unblocked, I said, oh, let's change from blocked all to block empty. And I was waiting for the notification, but I didn't see any notification. Because when you unblock the customer, that is not the event customer blocked, it is the event customer unblocked.
Wait, when you block the customer?
Event. A separate event for that. I'll show you in the list of events.
Yeah.
So here we have the definitions, and here in the top we have customer blocked, and here you have customer unblocked. And the difference is, if you go to Business Central to a customer card, and you change it to all or ship or invoice, that is a customer block event. When we change it to empty, that is the customer unblock event. Oh, yeah, okay. That is something you need to know.
Yeah, so but now the field, you need now to fetch which field was changed specifically now to know, is it shipped?
If API webhooks, yes. With external business events, you don't, but you subscribe to both customer blocked and customer unblocked.
Yeah.
And in your external subscriber, my Azure function, for example, I see what the event name is. So I can have one Azure function that receives multiple type of events, and then based on the event name says, okay, handle customer level change, handle customer blocked, handle customer unblocked. I mean, that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
The C# code for this is pretty simple. I have an C# code here. This is my Azure function that tries to deserialize my request body. Well, some handling here that in case the request body is incorrect, it just says, okay, accept, not going to give you an error message because I don't trust you. If it is empty, it's done. Then it's going to read the client state. If that client state is not is missing or is correct, it logs a warning, of course, but then it says accepted. And then finally, here I can, in this case, I just logged it, but here I could handle and say, hey, what is the event name? Is that customer blocked, customer unblocked, etc., etc. It's a pretty simple, straightforward code for this.
Okay, sure. So which one would you recommend, the webhooks or the external business events? Because for me, I'm just sold for the external business events.
Sorry, say that again?
Which one would you recommend, like to use, the webhooks or the external business events?
Definitely the external business events. Yeah. Definitely. So webhooks, they might be useful if you have an external system where you need to synchronize data to. So the external system just wants to keep track of all the changes and know when a record has been inserted, deleted, or modified. So when the external system wants their records to be in sync with Business Central and notify about every change, then API webhook is very useful. But for any process change like posted, payment received, whatever, it's always external business event.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, AJ. We actually feel like we needed more time for this, but we have tried to squeeze it in 1 hour. Yeah. But we really appreciate this has been really eye-opening for all of us in terms of the external business events and webhooks in Business Central, knowing that they are inbuilt and extending it is pretty fast. So this is really helpful for us. And maybe you can share your LinkedIn if somebody would like to contact you more after this, if maybe there's something when they're testing something and they feel like they need some more help. If able to, maybe they can reach out to you directly and be like, hey, I attended your meetup on this, but I'm trying to get to this and I'm not able to finalize. They can get to that. Yeah.
You can find me on AJ Kauffmann on LinkedIn. There is only one AJ Kauffmann there. So that's the name of my profile. I don't know the total link out of my top of my mind, but
Yeah,
it's
no
very
problem.
easy to get it.
Yeah, alternatively, if maybe you're active on Twitter or X, maybe that's okay. But if it's LinkedIn, then if LinkedIn is sufficient, then we are good with that.
LinkedIn is fine, Twitter is fine, Discord is fine, email is fine, you name it.
All right. So we are really happy, and since no one has unmuted, it means maybe they'll reach out to you privately, and we really appreciate you coming to present to us. This is the second time, and definitely we'll want to have you more. And
Fine.
you just tell us what you can present on, and we'll be ready to listen. I know you have presented on many other topics, so just tell us what else you are able to present on, and then we'll be able to align it in our plan.
Well,
Otherwise,
you tell me what you want to hear about, and I'll see if it is on my list.
All right, no problem. I'll ask people. Of course, you are the father of APIs in Business Central, so I'll ask people on the group about APIs, what they'd like to hear more, and then we'll get back to you and let you know what we want to listen. All right.
Super.
You have a good one. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you for joining and for spending some 15 extra minutes. Yeah, see you in the next meetup. And don't forget to register in the sessionize for the physical event. AJ, will you be able to come to Kenya? Possibly.
Not on a short notice, I'm afraid, but well, who knows? Who knows? I
No
make no
problem.
promises.
Yeah. But the sessionize is there for our meetup in July, a physical one, definitely here in Nairobi. So always welcome to join us. And for the team members, like AJ is presenting, you can also be one of the presenters in that meetup. Don't forget to be able to share whatever knowledge you have, simply whatever thing that you can share about, just register your session and we will align it either a functional, a technical, or a marketing or sales session. They'll be aligned in those 3 breakout rooms. So always welcome to add a session. So have a great evening, everyone, and thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, and until next time.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.